The sun hung high in the clear blue sky, casting a warm and golden glow over the riverside park. It was one of those rare, perfect days when everything seemed to slow down just enough for people to savor the simple joys of life. The gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming flowers and fresh grass, and the soft murmur of the river flowing alongside the walking paths added a soothing soundtrack to the afternoon. Families had gathered to enjoy the beautiful weather. Children ran laughing across the green lawns, their excited shouts filling the air. Some were chasing butterflies, while others played catch with colorful frisbees or kicked soccer balls with the kind of energy only kids seemed to have. Nearby, picnic blankets were spread out with baskets full of sandwiches, fresh fruit, and homemade lemonade. The smell of grilled food from a small food stand teased the senses, mixing with the fresh river air. Amid this lively scene was Max, a strong and noble German shepherd. He was the star of the day, not just because of his impressive size and striking black and tan coat, but because of the deep bond he shared with his family. Max's eyes sparkled with intelligence and affection as he trotted happily beside his owners, a young couple who smiled fondly every time Max's tail wagged excitedly. To them, Max was more than a pet. He was a loyal friend and protector. Max loved the river. The flowing water fascinated him, and he often paused at the bank to watch the little fish dart beneath the surface or to sniff the cool air rising from the ripples. Today was no different. As they walked along the path that hugged the river, Max's nose twitched with curiosity. His ears perked up as he caught the faint scent of something interesting upstream. He pulled gently on his leash, eager to explore. The couple laughed and relaxed, enjoying the day as Max's excitement grew. He wasn't just any dog. He was bold and adventurous, always ready for a new discovery. They let him off his leash for a moment, trusting his training and confident in the calm environment of the park. Max bounded ahead happily, his powerful legs carrying him closer to the water's edge. The riverbank was dotted with smooth stones and patches of soft grass. Max moved carefully, sniffing the ground and occasionally wagging his tail at passersby who greeted him with warm smiles. Nearby, a group of children played by the water, tossing small sticks into the current and watching them float downstream. Max watched them too, his eyes full of curiosity and a gentle kindness that made everyone feel at ease around him. As the afternoon wore on, the park's atmosphere felt like a scene from a storybook, peaceful, joyful, and full of promise. Parents chatted on benches while keeping an eye on their little ones, and friends tossed frisbees or shared jokes. Max's owners settled on a nearby picnic blanket, letting him explore freely within sight. Max's happiness was clear. He sniffed at the wildflowers growing near the water, chased after a dragonfly for a moment, and then settled down on the grass, panting lightly in the warm sun. His expressive eyes scanned the river, fascinated by the sparkling water and the way it moved so effortlessly around the rocks. Unbeknownst to everyone, this peaceful scene was about to change in a heartbeat. What started as a perfect afternoon filled with laughter and sunshine was about to turn into a moment that would bring strangers together, testing their courage and kindness in a way no one expected. But for now, Max was simply a joyful dog enjoying a day out, and the river was just a beautiful backdrop to the happiness that surrounded him. The stage was set for an unforgettable story, one that would soon sweep through the park like the rushing river itself. Max was having the time of his life. The warm sun on his back, the soft grass under his paws, and the endless curiosity that filled his heart made him feel unstoppable. He padded closer to the river's edge, mesmerized by the way the water danced over the stones and sparkled in the afternoon light. As he sniffed around, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves above, sending dappled shadows flickering over the riverbank. Max's ears twitched as he caught a new scent, something fresh and earthy, carried by the cool air from upriver. His tail wagged faster, and his nose led him toward a cluster of smooth, wet rocks at the water's edge. Max's owner called softly, "Max, come back." But the dog was too focused on the scents and sounds of the river to pay attention. His paws moved carefully over the slippery stones, trying to find solid footing. The water lapped gently against the bank, but the smooth rocks were slick with moss, hidden beneath the shallow currents. Suddenly, one of Max's paws slipped on a slimy stone. His body tensed for a moment as he tried to steady himself, but gravity and the wet surface won the battle. Max lost his balance and tumbled forward, splashing into the cold river. The moment Max hit the water, the peaceful afternoon shifted to chaos. The river's current was stronger than anyone had realized, pulling the dog away from the safety of the shore. Max's powerful legs paddled frantically, but the fast-moving water pushed him further downstream. Max's eyes showed panic as he struggled to keep his head above water. His barks were muffled by the rush of the river, but the distress in his face was clear. He was a strong swimmer, but the river's sudden force overwhelmed even him. Every muscle in his body strained against the current, but it was a battle he was losing. "Max, hold on!" his owner shouted, reaching toward him with trembling arms. Other park visitors turned sharply at the sound of distress. People who had been chatting and laughing moments ago now stood frozen, their faces pale with shock. One man by the water's edge took a cautious step forward, but the slippery rocks made it impossible to move closer safely. Others shouted for help, their voices rising in a chorus of worry and fear. The river seemed relentless, and Max's frantic efforts to reach the shore felt heartbreaking to watch. Children who had been playing nearby stopped abruptly, some covering their mouths in shock. Parents pulled their little ones back, afraid of the dangerous water. Yet everyone's eyes were fixed on Max, unwilling to look away from the desperate struggle. Max's owners were frozen with fear. They shouted his name again, tears beginning to well in their eyes. The dog who had been so full of life just moments ago was now fighting for survival in the swirling water. The helplessness of the situation weighed heavily on the crowd. Max paddled harder, his body trembling from the cold and exhaustion. The current pushed him around rocks and debris, and for a moment, he disappeared beneath the surface. Gasps rose from the onlookers, and a heavy silence fell. Then, Max broke through the water, gasping and barking weakly. His spirit hadn't faded. He fought with everything he had left. The sight was both heartbreaking and inspiring, a reminder of the will to survive that animals carry deep inside them. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as the struggle continued. The river showed no mercy, and the shore still felt impossibly far away. Max's powerful frame bobbed in the water, battling the relentless flow. Suddenly, a small child nearby stirred in their stroller. Their eyes, wide with innocent concern, locked onto Max's struggle. The baby's tiny hands reached out, and a quiet determination took hold, though no one yet understood how significant that small gesture would become. For now, the crowd remained stunned, unsure of how to help but unwilling to give up. Max's fight was a call to action, and the river's strength tested the courage of everyone watching. The Riverside Park, which had been filled with the sounds of laughter and play just moments before, was now eerily silent. The only noise was the rushing water of the river and the occasional gasp or murmur from the growing crowd. All eyes were locked on the struggling figure in the current, Max, the brave German shepherd fighting against the unforgiving river. Parents clutched their children tightly, instinctively pulling them back from the dangerous riverbank. Some knelt down, shielding little eyes from the frightening sight, but most couldn't tear their gaze away. The feeling of helplessness swept through the crowd like a cold wind. No one had expected such a peaceful afternoon to turn into a life-or-death moment. Max's owners stood frozen at the water's edge, their faces pale and drawn. Their hands trembled as they called his name over and over, their voices thick with panic. The young woman's eyes glistened with tears, and the man looked as if he was searching desperately for any way to reach their beloved dog. Nearby, a few brave souls tried to inch closer to the riverbank, but the slippery stones and unstable ground kept them back. One man carefully stepped down, but the wet rocks made him hesitate. His foot nearly slipped, and he quickly retreated to safer ground. Others shouted suggestions, calling for someone to find a rope or a long stick, anything that could help pull Max to safety. The crowd grew in size as more park visitors noticed the unfolding emergency. Some people immediately pulled out their phones, ready to call for professional help. But with every second that passed, the fear that help might arrive too late deepened. Max paddled with all his strength, his eyes wide with panic but still focused. His fur was soaked, clinging tightly to his lean body, and his mouth opened and closed in desperate gasps for air. Despite his struggle, the river was relentless, pushing him downstream, farther from those who loved him. A mother nearby whispered a prayer, her voice barely audible over the roar of the river. A father held his son tightly, his jaw clenched, hoping the boy wouldn't be scarred by the terrifying sight. Some of the older children watched with wide eyes, learning a harsh lesson about nature's power and the fragility of life. Among the crowd, tension hung thick. People whispered about what could be done. Some suggested someone swim out to Max, but others warned of the dangers. The river was fast and cold, and no one wanted to add another life at risk. Max's owners pleaded with the crowd, their voices trembling, "Please, someone help him. He's our family." The desperation in their voices cut through the heavy silence, stirring something deep in the hearts of those watching. Suddenly, a little girl nearby clutched her mother's hand tightly and said, "We have to do something." The woman nodded, squeezing her daughter's hand in return. The child's determination sparked a quiet wave of courage among some of the bystanders. But for now, the river kept its grip on Max. The dog's paddling slowed slightly, exhaustion beginning to weigh on him. The current spun him around a sharp bend, and for a terrifying moment, Max disappeared beneath the surface. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Time seemed to freeze. Then, as if refusing to give up, Max broke through the water again, his head lifting as he gasped for air. His eyes met those of his owners, filled with fear but still fighting. The sight brought tears to many watching, hope mixed with fear in every breath. As Max battled the relentless river, a small child sitting quietly in a stroller nearby suddenly stirred. The baby's wide eyes locked onto the dog, full of innocent concern. The child reached out tiny hands toward the river, as if wanting to help but unsure how. The crowd's attention slowly shifted from panic to hope. That small, fragile figure made something clear. Even in moments of despair, courage and kindness could still be found. Still, no one moved yet. The river was a powerful force, and the danger was very real. The seconds stretched on, heavy with fear and anticipation. But the story was far from over. The helpless German shepherd's fight for survival had captured every heart, and soon the unexpected courage of the smallest witness would change everything. Amid the growing crowd's tension and fear, a small figure quietly caught the attention of a few nearby adults. A baby sitting calmly in a stroller not far from the riverbank. While most eyes were locked on Max, the struggling German shepherd, this child seemed to watch with a quiet curiosity and concern that was different from the panic around. The baby's wide eyes, innocent and bright, followed every splash and struggle in the water. Unlike the anxious adults, whose faces were etched with worry and fear, the child's expression was calm yet focused, as if something inside was stirring, sensing the urgency without fully understanding it. Nearby, the baby's mother gently rocked the stroller, whispering soothing words. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said softly, her eyes flicking anxiously toward the river. But the baby's gaze never wavered from the water. Tiny fingers reached out instinctively, as though wanting to touch the river or reach the dog. A few people near the stroller noticed. They smiled softly, touched by the baby's innocent focus. One elderly woman leaned down and whispered, "Look at that little one, so calm in all this chaos." Another bystander, a young man, nodded. "Sometimes it's the smallest who remind us to be brave," he said quietly. The baby's mother looked down at her child and smiled despite the tension. She saw the determined look in those eyes, a spark that was impossible to ignore. "You've got a big heart, little one," she whispered. Slowly, the baby began to move. It started as a small shift, a wriggle in the stroller, but soon the child was reaching out with tiny hands, gripping the sides as if trying to stand or crawl. The movement was small but purposeful. The baby's desire to get closer was clear. "Wait," said a woman nearby, her voice soft but urgent. "Look at the baby. Something's happening." Heads turned, and a hush fell over part of the crowd as they realized the baby was trying to move forward. The mother gently encouraged the baby, not wanting to stop the innocent instinct to help. "Be careful, honey," she cautioned, though her voice was filled with pride rather than fear. The baby began to crawl, a slow but steady movement toward the riverbank. Each little hand pressed on the grass, each small knee found purchase on the soft earth. The determination was undeniable, and even strangers watching felt their hearts swell. In a crowd filled with fear and helplessness, the baby's simple action seemed to breathe new hope into the moment. The child's innocence and courage were a powerful contrast to the panic surrounding them. A young father nearby knelt down and called softly to the baby, "You're brave, little one. Keep going." Other bystanders began to cheer quietly, their voices full of encouragement. As the baby crawled closer to the water, the crowd's energy shifted. Fear was still there, but it was now mixed with awe and a growing sense of unity. People started to believe that maybe, just maybe, this tiny act of courage could inspire something greater. Max's struggle continued in the rushing river, but for the first time since he fell in, there was a spark of hope that he might be saved. The baby's innocent gaze had not only caught the attention of the crowd, but had touched something deep inside each person's heart. The mother stayed close but let her child move forward, knowing that sometimes bravery comes in the smallest packages. She smiled through her tears, proud of her baby's unexpected courage. As the baby neared the edge of the riverbank, the crowd held their breath. No one moved yet. The river was still dangerous, and the moment fragile. But the baby's determined crawl reminded everyone that even the smallest actions can light the way through the darkest moments. Max paddled with renewed strength, as if sensing the hope rising around him. The river's current was still strong, but the courage of one tiny child was beginning to ripple through the crowd, ready to inspire a rescue no one thought possible. As the baby's tiny hands pressed against the damp grass, a hush fell over the crowd. The slow but steady crawl toward the riverbank was unlike anything anyone had expected. In the midst of fear and uncertainty, this small, fragile figure was moving forward with a kind of determination that left everyone speechless. The baby's mother watched closely, her heart pounding but her voice calm. "Be careful, sweetheart," she whispered, but she did not stop her child. She could see the spark of courage in those bright eyes, a quiet strength that seemed to reach beyond understanding. Around the riverbank, people began to lean in, their attention fully captured by the baby's progress. The bustling chaos of just moments before had transformed into a focused, almost reverent silence. Each small movement of the baby's hands and knees was met with soft gasps and whispered encouragement. A young man standing near the water said quietly, "If a baby can find the courage to move closer, then maybe we can find the courage to help too." His words spread quickly, stirring a wave of resolve through the crowd. One by one, adults who had been frozen by fear started to shift. Hands reached for ropes, sticks, and jackets. A group of volunteers formed a plan to reach Max safely. They carefully edged closer to the water, encouraged by the baby's brave example. The baby, oblivious to the impact of their actions, kept crawling forward. The grass was cool and soft, but the ground near the river was uneven and slippery. Still, the child pushed onward, small knees sliding but never stopping. Nearby, a mother whispered to her daughter, "See how even the smallest can make a difference. Never forget that." The little girl nodded, eyes wide with awe. Max, still fighting the current, seemed to sense the shift in the air. His eyes locked on the riverbank, where the crowd was no longer frozen but moving with purpose. The dog's paddling grew stronger, fueled by a sudden surge of hope. The volunteers carefully formed a human chain. Holding onto each other's wrists tightly, they reached out with sticks and ropes, their eyes focused on Max's struggling figure in the water. Each person felt the weight of the moment, a shared responsibility to save a life. The baby's crawling reached its limit at the very edge of the riverbank. The child's hands touched the soft earth, and the small body leaned forward, reaching instinctively toward the water. Though the baby could not understand the danger, the gesture was pure and powerful. a silent plea for help. A man closest to the water shouted, "Grab the rope. We're going to get him." The team pulled together, steady and strong. The river's roar filled the air as the human chain stretched toward Max. Max paddled toward the reach of the sticks and ropes. Every movement was a battle, but the strength of the community gave him hope. Inch by inch, the dog fought the pull of the current, moving closer to the safety waiting on the shore. The crowd watched, breath held, as Max's paw finally gripped one of the sticks. The volunteers tightened their hold, pulling with steady hands. Slowly, painfully, Max was dragged out of the water. Cheers erupted from the crowd as Max's soaked body hit the grass. The dog shook off the cold water, splashing those closest to him. His eyes met those of his owners, full of gratitude and relief. The baby's mother scooped up her child, holding the small body close. Tears of joy and disbelief streamed down her cheeks. The baby smiled, unaware of the life-changing moment they had inspired. Around the park, people hugged and clapped, their hearts full of emotion. The baby's innocent bravery had sparked a miracle, reminding everyone that courage can come from the most unexpected places. That day, the Riverside Park became a place of hope and unity. Max's rescue was not just about saving a dog, but about the power of community and the simple, profound impact of one tiny act of courage. The moment Max's paws finally touched solid ground, the entire Riverside Park seemed to exhale collectively. The air, once thick with tension and fear, was now filled with relief and joyous cheers. People clapped and hugged, some wiping tears from their eyes, as Max lay on the soft grass, drenched but safe. The heroic German Shepherd was alive, and it was all thanks to the incredible spirit that had blossomed in that tense afternoon. Max's owners rushed forward, tears streaming freely as they knelt beside their beloved dog. The young woman wrapped her arms around Max's soaked fur, murmuring words of comfort and love. The man gently brushed Max's face, his voice shaking but filled with gratitude. "You're okay, boy. You're okay," he repeated over and over. Around them, the crowd's mood shifted from worry to celebration. Strangers who had gathered by chance found themselves sharing something deeply meaningful. People exchanged smiles and congratulations, their faces glowing with the warmth of shared victory. The baby, still in the mother's arms, gurgled happily, completely unaware of the profound impact they had made. The volunteers who had formed the human chain stood a little apart, catching their breath. Their hands still gripped the rope and sticks they had used in the rescue. One of the men, a local construction worker named Tom, wiped the sweat from his brow and smiled. "We did it," he said simply, his voice full of quiet pride. Around him, others nodded in agreement. A woman who had been watching from a bench nearby spoke up, her voice clear and heartfelt. "It wasn't just the human chain," she said. "It was that little baby's courage that brought us all together. Sometimes it's the smallest light that shines the brightest." Her words echoed through the crowd. Many nodded, reflecting on the baby's determined crawl that had sparked the courage they needed to act. The idea that a tiny child's innocent bravery could inspire grown adults to risk their own safety was both humbling and uplifting. Max's owner turned to the baby's mother and smiled warmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your child gave us hope when we didn't know what to do. You both are heroes." The mother smiled shyly, still holding her baby close. "We didn't know what to do either," she admitted softly. "But sometimes you just follow your heart." As the crowd began to disperse, the mood remained light and hopeful. Children who had been scared moments before now laughed and played again, their innocent joy restored. Friends and families gathered their belongings, sharing stories of what they had witnessed. Some stayed behind, checking on Max as he slowly regained his strength. The dog's eyes, still bright despite the ordeal, followed his owner's every move. They wrapped him in warm towels and gave him water, their relief growing with each passing minute. Local park officials arrived soon after, having been alerted by calls from concerned visitors. They thanked the volunteers and assured everyone that the river's dangerous currents would be clearly marked in the future. Plans for improved safety measures began to take shape, inspired by the day's events. Among the crowd, A reporter from the local newspaper quietly took notes, moved by the story unfolding before her. She knew this was more than just an animal rescue. It was a story about courage, community, and the unexpected ways we find hope. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting a golden glow over the park, Max's family gathered for a quiet moment. The baby, now nestled in the mother's arms, smiled sleepily, as if sensing the peace around them. The river flowed gently beside them, no longer a threat, but a symbol of life's unpredictable currents, a reminder that even in the toughest moments, hope can carry us through. That day, the Riverside Park witnessed more than just a rescue. It witnessed a community united by compassion, inspired by innocence, and strengthened by the unbreakable bond between a dog and those who loved him. And as the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, one thing was clear. The story of Max and the baby's brave move would be remembered for years to come, a shining example of how kindness and courage can light the darkest moments. In the quiet hours after the rescue, the Riverside Park began to empty, but the impact of the day's events lingered in the air like a gentle hum. Max lay on a blanket, wrapped snugly in warm towels, his breathing steady and calm. His owners sat close by, their hands never leaving his damp fur, grateful for the chance to hold him safe once again. Though Max was tired and a little shaken, his spirit seemed unbroken. His eyes sparkled with the quiet strength that had carried him through the ordeal. The experience had deepened the bond between dog and humans in a way no one could have expected. The baby, now resting peacefully in the mother's arms, had become a symbol of hope and courage in the park. Stories of the tiny child's brave crawl spread quickly, inspiring many who had witnessed the event firsthand. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the grass, the park's atmosphere softened into something almost magical. The natural beauty of the place stood in stark contrast to the drama that had unfolded just hours before. It was a reminder that life, in all its unpredictability, carried moments of danger and moments of grace, sometimes intertwined. Max's owners took a deep breath and shared stories about their loyal dog. They spoke of his gentle nature, his playful spirit, and his fierce loyalty. It was clear that Max was more than a pet. He was family. And today, that family had come together in a way that went beyond words. Nearby, the baby's mother watched the sunset with a thoughtful smile. She cradled her child gently, marveling at the tiny hands that had unknowingly sparked a rescue. "You changed everything today," she whispered softly. "You showed us all what courage really means." The community that had gathered by the river earlier began to disperse slowly, but not before exchanging warm goodbyes and promises to look out for one another in the future. The experience had forged new connections, binding strangers with shared gratitude and respect. Local park officials took the opportunity to discuss safety improvements. Plans were made to install clearer warning signs near the river and to create designated safe zones for pets and children. It was a way to honor the day's events and to prevent future accidents. A reporter from the local newspaper approached Max's owners for an interview. Her eyes shone with empathy as she listened to their story, capturing every detail. She knew the tale would touch the hearts of many readers, a story about fear, hope, and the extraordinary bravery found in the smallest of heroes. Max's owners smiled as they spoke, their gratitude evident. "It wasn't just us," the woman said. "It was everyone here, the volunteers, the crowd, and that little baby. We'll never forget it." As twilight deepened, Max's family gathered their belongings, preparing to leave the park. The baby yawned, eyes fluttering closed, peaceful now and safe in the arms of the mother who loved them fiercely. Before they left, the baby's mother gently touched Max's damp head. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. It was a simple moment, but it held the weight of everything that had happened. Max wagged his tail weakly in response, as if to say, "I'm grateful too." The river flowed quietly beside them, its waters calmer now under the evening sky. It was a reminder that life moves on, carrying with it the memories of moments that change us forever. That night, as Max rested in his warm home and the baby slept soundly in a cozy crib, the story of a helpless dog, a rushing river, and a brave little child became more than just a tale. It became a lasting bond between a community, between humans and animals, and between hearts touched by courage and kindness. And somewhere, beneath the vast, starry sky, that bond quietly grew stronger. Days turned into weeks, but the story of Max's rescue continued to ripple through the community like a gentle wave. The memory of the helpless German shepherd struggling in the river and the tiny baby whose brave crawl sparked hope and action was still alive in the hearts of those who had witnessed it. Max's owners found themselves touched by messages from strangers who had read the local newspaper's heartfelt article. Many shared their own stories of courage, kindness, and the unexpected moments that had changed their lives. The family was humbled and grateful, feeling the deep connection the event had created across the town. At home, Max was slowly returning to his playful self. Though still a little tired, his tail wagged with more energy each day. The close call with the river had only strengthened the bond between dog and family, reminding them all how precious each moment truly was. The baby, now a little more mobile and curious, seemed unaware of the hero's role played just days before. Yet those who cared for the child saw something special, a quiet spirit and a natural empathy that had touched so many. The baby's innocent bravery was quietly becoming part of their family's story, a reminder that courage often comes wrapped in the smallest packages. The Riverside Park, once just a peaceful place for afternoon strolls and picnics, had taken on new meaning. Community members came together to help make it safer, installing new signs near the water, reinforcing barriers, and organizing awareness programs about river safety. The efforts were driven by the hope that no other family would face the same fear. Local schools invited Max's owners and the baby's family to speak about the day's events. Their story became a lesson about bravery, kindness, and the power of community, inspiring children and adults alike to look out for one another and to act when help was needed. One afternoon, Max and the baby's family returned to the riverbank together. The baby toddled along, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers picked from the grassy fields. Max trotted nearby, his eyes bright and watchful, a living symbol of survival and love. The families paused by the water, watching the gentle current flow by. Max's owner knelt down, speaking softly. "This river is beautiful, but it's also powerful," he said. "We respect it now more than ever, and we want to protect it." The baby's mother smiled, holding her child close, "And we'll always remember how one small act of courage helped us all." Nearby, a plaque was unveiled in the park, commemorating the rescue. It read, "In honor of Max, the brave German shepherd, and the tiny child whose courage inspired a community. May their story remind us that hope and kindness can light the darkest moments." The ceremony brought tears and smiles in equal measure. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers gathered to celebrate not just a rescue, but the extraordinary power of compassion. In the years that followed, the story of Max and the baby's brave move was told and retold, a cherished memory passed down through generations. It became a symbol of how, even in the face of fear and danger, the smallest hearts can lead the way to hope and safety. Max continued to explore the world with the boundless enthusiasm only a dog could have, while the child grew surrounded by love and stories of that unforgettable day. Their paths were forever linked by an invisible thread of courage, kindness, and the undeniable magic of human and animal connection. And every time the river whispered its steady song, those who knew the story smiled, reminded that sometimes the greatest heroes come in the smallest forms, teaching us that no matter how helpless we may feel, there is always a way to fight, to hope, and to bring others together. The end.